Good evening, good day, good morning, hello, wherever you are, whatever time it is. I want to say a very special happy Independence Day 2022 to all my Trinidad and Tobago citizens, Trinidad and Tobago diaspora, children of parents who are Trinbagonian, right? We are celebrating 60. So this is our Independence Day message. We would have done messages so far for Emancipation Day that was earlier this month. Um, we also did a message for Jamaica's Independence Day. So again, shout out to our big brother, Jamaica. They also celebrate Independence Day in this month of August. And they also celebrated 60 years with us, right? So you could also go and check out that video to hear a little more about that. Um, but we are focusing today on our Trinidad and Tobago Independence Day. In the earlier messages, we spoke about something. We spoke about a revolution, and we want to continue on that theme. Um, and as we said, it is a revolution of brotherly love, right? So we are going to be talking about that some more, but in a slightly different context. So when we talk independence or Independence Day, and as we continue with that theme of, a revolution of love, a revolution of brotherly love, we want to focus on this right here: freedom to live right. So when we talk about independence, and when you mention that word independence, Independence Day, when you tell people Happy Independence Day as we celebrate our independence, let us not just look at this as a cause to celebrate, a cause to balance, a cause to while out, right? Let us look at a deeper significance. Let us ask the questions why, or ask the question, why are we free in the first place? So, what is independence? What does it mean to be independent? A very simple definition is that it is the state of wanting or being able to do things for yourself and make your own decisions without help or influence from other people. So independence is a state, right? It is a state of being. Again, coming back to the words of the late, great, as they say, Bob Marley, when he said, we need to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, right? So if we are an independent nation, we need to have the mindset, the state of mind of an independent people. And this state says this, that we want to be able, as an independent people, to do things for ourselves and to make our own decisions without help, or better yet, influence from other people. So, in other words, we would like to chart our own course. We want to forge our own destiny. All that is saying is we want to take full responsibility for our lives. Now, I'm remaining in this theme about freedom, right? I continue in the book of Exodus, and this is Exodus chapter 1. So we will go through a few verses very quickly, and we're going to come back to that question, or come back to this theme here, which is freedom to live right. So in verse 11, hear what it says. Therefore, they set taskmasters over them to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh supply cities, Pithom and Ramses. So the Egyptians or the masters, they set people called taskmasters over the, in this case, it would be the Israelites or the Hebrews to afflict them. So, in other words, they put people over them to make their lives difficult. Could you imagine being in a situation like this where people are put over you to make your life difficult? Overseers or leaders are put over you, service people are put over you to make your life difficult as they enrich themselves, as they build themselves up, right? So you see this word here, taskmasters, I want you to remember that. Remember this word as we move forward. Now, further down in chapter 1, hear what it says from verse 13. So the Egyptians, and in this context, this word Egyptian would speak to any ruler that has imposed themselves upon a people, right? So the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor, right? With hardship, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage. Again, just picture this. You have people who are making you serve with rigor. You are trying to work. You are trying to better your life, better yourself. And people are making it as hard as possible for you to do so. They are making your life bitter because of the bondage, because of the work, because of the effort and the toil they are putting you through. And it closes off by saying all their service in which they made them serve was with rigor, right? Now let's jump over to chapter 3. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt. So the Lord is saying here, I'm seeing what is going on and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, because of the leaders, because of the supervisors, because of the people in position, right? Um, who are making their lives bitter. It says, for I know their sorrows. So I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up from that land to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey. In other words, God is saying that I am going to put them in a place where they can prosper, where they are free to prosper without the taskmaster and the oppressors over them. Free to forge their own destiny, their own prosperous destiny, right? Free to build the type of nation and culture that they want to build, but one that is in line with my ways. In other words, God wants his people to do things in a way that please him. And when we do things in a way that please God, it is also good and pleasurable for us. So in verse 9, he says, now therefore, behold, the cry of the children has come up to me or has come to me. I've seen the oppression with, with which the Egyptians oppress them. He says, come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh. I will send you to the oppressor, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. So God is saying he sees what is going on. He understands the hardship. He understands the bitter bondage. He understands the toil. And he wants the people to be free. Now, here's my big question. What mark will you leave? What mark will you leave on this nation? Because as we go back, remember, we said independence is the state of wanting or being able to do things for yourself and make your own decisions, right? but we also realize we are celebrating 60 years of independence. So we are actually celebrating 60 years of being in a state or a position where we are able to do things for ourselves. And for 60 years, we have been able to make our own decisions, not necessarily without influence, but we are independent. But guess what? When I look at my nation, I realize that there is still bitter bondage. We realize that there are still taskmasters over us, right? But here, what is the sad part? And I want to give a very quick story to bring it to light. And it is not an unfamiliar story. You could apply it in many different contexts. So here how the story goes. There is this gentleman, a well-to-do gentleman, an educated gentleman, so much so that he's an educator himself, someone who has very good business acumen, right? So much so that he can actually teach on the topic of business. This person is a family man, so a stable individual, right? An upstanding, right living citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. And this individual also has a passion for agriculture, right? So this individual started some agricultural projects, and using his skill, using his knowledge, his business acumen, he is, steadily building something very positive, right? Now, this gentleman, remember all these nice things I said about the gentleman so far, right? High level of education, to the level of being a lecturer, right? So this is somebody who we would call smart, um, who has stable employment, all the things you would hope people would have, right? Because when it comes to agriculture, we know there are certain stigmas attached to agriculture. We say, well, agriculture, a lot of the people in agriculture, they're not educated, they don't know about business, blah, 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 right? But this guy is trying to get his farmer's badge, which is something that our country, our country's leadership has put in place to help people, to help farmers, right, access certain things. Now, the gentleman has been unable to get his farmer's badge, and he is still trying. But here what the issue is. So he has been trying for a long time. He still can't get it. But somebody um, within the organization responsible for such is telling the individual, listen, I could get your badge for you, and I could get it for you in a matter of weeks, less than a month. But here what? You just need to pay me a few $1,000s, right? And I'm sure you all can identify, because the same thing happens in many areas. The same thing happens in the licensing office. The same thing happens in lots of places, right? We know about that. Why um, is it that we feel you have to know somebody or you have to pass money to get things done that it is ours? This is not your father own or your mother own, that things people come in for. It is things that the country put in place for its citizens, for you and for me and for our children, right? Here's another story. A mother went with her son, and the son is autistic to some degree, and she went with a particular form, right, that would help the son access certain benefits that the country has made available for him. The person working in the office, in a very condescending and harsh way, asked this mother, where you get that form? As if to say, how is it you were able to access this thing? Because we are so accustomed with bubble, we are so accustomed with corruption. And this, I mean, it is so hurtful, because do you realize we are independent? So before the 60 years, we had somebody to blame. We had the Egyptian to blame. We could have said it is the white man, or it is the European, or it is the foreigner, however you want to classify them. We could have pointed to somebody and say, you know what, they are the reason. Because why? I am not in a state where I am able to do things for myself or make my own decisions, right? That was before the 60 years, but we are no longer there. So it means that the people afflicting us right now are our own people. The people making us pay for things that we should be able to access for free are our own people. The people working in the services that are making things go so long and frustrating people so that people can now pay them to speed up the process. It is not no foreigner. It is we doing these things to ourselves. We are afflicting our own people. We are putting burdens on our own people to enrich ourselves. That is wickedness. That is selfishness. And most of all, that is absolutely stupid because we are in a position where we should be forging our own destiny, where we should be making our own way prosperous so we could be proud of our Trinidad and Tobago, right? Look at some of the things happening right now. Look at some of the strikes taking place. Now, on the one hand, here is what I have noticed over the years. When Trinidadians and Tobagonians strike in recent history, let's say probably after the days of Buzz Butler and those guys, when it was really necessary for people to rise up against the system and against the powers that were in place because of their oppressive nature, right? They wanted better standards, better working conditions, and all of these things. But what are we doing right now? Is it that the only time we strike right now is when we want more money? But what are we doing about the service that we are offering? So when um people's property were being vandalized and stolen, when the government's iron and metal containing properties were being vandalized and stolen, where were the people in this industry to stand up and say, listen, this is wrong? Because here's what's happening. Every time some particular union, some particular industry, some particular group of people chooses to strike, they want the nation to be supportive and understanding, right? Of their plight and their concerns. We want the nation to understand, no, we are doing this for a good cause. But is the good cause only to try to fill our own pockets with more money? Hmm? So here is the whole point that I am coming to. This really is not a message to bash people. This is our Trinidad and Tobago, right? You see that thumbprint? There was a time, probably still some people might do it, where you put a thumbprint as your signature. That was your mark, right? And when you place your mark on something, what you are saying is you affirm, you agree with, you understand and agree with whatever was contained in the document you are putting your mark to. So that is a mark of agreement. What mark are we leaving? What are we agreeing to? Are we agreeing as a nation that corruption is okay? Are we agreeing that within the medical fraternity, corruption is okay? Are we agreeing that the only time we in the medical fraternity should strike is when we want more money? Are we agreeing that it is okay for people to be put on waiting lists for months and years for simple surgery for simple procedures. When we have people within these organizations charging people and siphoning people into their private organizations to do things, and sometimes when you go to the private organizations, they bring the work back to the public institutions to get them done for free. Are we who are involved in licensing okay with the corruption that is taking place in there, where people who may not know how to drive, who have never even sat with a driving instructor, are just passing money and getting a Trinidad and Tobago driver's permit delivered to them? So we are putting people on the streets to drive who do not even understand or know the laws of the road, but people who are legally going through the process, taking all their drivers' instructions, doing the tests to ensure that they can be safe drivers. We are denying and frustrating these people because we are trying to enrich our own pockets. Hmm? All the unions, do unions make sense anymore? Do the unions work to clean up their own environment? This is not about anybody trying to throw shade on anybody else, but it is all of us in whatever area, whatever industry we are in, even to the point of our own homes. Because if, as parents, we train our children to hate corruption, to hate evil, we could never end up with so much corrupt people in our society. If you are serving um, your particular political party, why don't you strike? Strike for your party. Strike and tell your leaders, we as the people who support this party, we are not going to stand for political corruption anymore. Forget what the other party is doing. Work and strike to clean up your party. Leave a mark in your party. The union members, strike for better leadership within your organization. Don't just strike for more money. Strike for better service so that when the public goes to these institutions, especially these government institutions, we can get good service. Don't have us waiting 2 months and 3 months and 6 months and years for things that can be done in days or weeks. Strike against these things. Those in the protective services. Yes, we understand that there is corruption in the wider society, but you know there is corruption in your ranks as well. Clean out your own house. If everybody does that, if the doctors clean out their own house and the nurses clean out their own house, because if you as a doctor who want to live right, you decide that you are not going to tolerate corrupt doctors around you, and then the nurses also do the same thing, and then those in other positions also do the same thing. What kind of health service will we end up with? I am not asking the doctor to try to solve the problems that are going on in the security service industry. I am not asking the people in the scrap iron industry to try to solve the problems that are going on in agriculture. I am not asking you, mother, you, mommy, or you, daddy, to try and solve the problems that are going on in your neighbor house. Let all of us ask ourselves the question, what do we want to do? So I am saying freedom, when we think and we say independence, we should recognize that what we are is free to live right. Because the reason we did not like this bondage is because what they were doing to us is wickedness. So what they were doing to us is something that was wrong. They were not living right. And because they were not living right, They didn't treat us the way human beings should be treated. They didn't treat us with love and respect and care and compassion. They did not do that. They focused on enriching themselves, and they focused on doing so by exploitation. So if we are now independent and we are the ones who are able to make these changes for ourselves and shape a future for ourselves, why have we become our own taskmasters? Why are we being wicked to our own people? Hmm? Why are we allowing corruption within our own services? Do we realize that makes no sense? Because the same person who make a little money extra on the side in licensing, the same person who make a little extra money in the hospital or in the agriculture industry or whatever industry, do you realize you are losing more in all the other corrupt places? So then who really is benefiting? We have such a beautiful nation as we are right now. Even with all the corruption going on, there is still so much Trinidad and Tobago has to offer. And I believe we are called and destined by God to be one of the great leaders, national leaders in this region. But in order to do so effectively, we have to start setting a better example. Why must we be known as tricky daddians and all these sort of foolish terms? And we could hardly disagree because there is high level of bubble and corruption in our society that is keeping us as citizens and our children and our loved ones from enjoying the type of life we should be enjoying. Look at the levels of crime. Look at how some of these things just running away from us. Why? Because how could we deal with the criminals when those responsible for dealing with crime are themselves operating in ways that they should not be operating? So, what are we going to do different? I am pleading and I am saying and I am putting it forward to us that the reason we have our freedom is so that we can live right as a people. If we want to celebrate, truly celebrate our independence, let us celebrate it by showing and proving that we are able to take care of ourselves and our loved ones and our fellow citizens properly. That is how we show we are an independent people. Not by becoming our own taskmasters, not by becoming the ones that make our own lives difficult, the ones that afflict us, the ones that cause us to serve with rigor, the ones that make our lives bitter. Why should we be making ourselves bitter? So, once again, even as we celebrate 60 years of independence, I am calling on all of us, whether you are a part of the church, whether you are a part of some religious organization, whether you are part of a political party or within the political or government system, whether you are in the health industry, whether you are in the protective services, whatever sector, education, whatever the case may be, wherever you are, what mark are you making? Are you adding to the corruption? Are you supporting and condoning it? Are you staying silent? Remember, God raised up an individual to go to the afflictors, to go to the oppressors, and tell them, let my people go so that they could live right and serve me. Are we willing to do the same thing? Are we willing to start speaking out and standing up against this corruption, against these wicked and evil taskmasters? Are we willing to repent and to say to ourselves, I was part of that, but I don't want to be part of that anymore. This is not the Trinidad and Tobago that I want. This is not the legacy. This is not what true independence looks like. Are we willing to say that and repent? And each of us as individuals do what we can and really make a stand against the foolishness and against wickedness so that we can forge a future and forge a nation and build a nation that we can all be proud of. So as we celebrate 60 and we move beyond, what mark are you going to leave on this beautiful Trinidad and Tobago? Are you free to live right, or are you free to continue to be a taskmaster or an oppressor? I say, let us be the people that choose to live right, that understand that we are free and independent so that we can live right and do right and show love to one another so that we can build a better, a stronger, a more resilient, a safer, a more peaceful, a more enjoyable, a more prosperous Trinidad and Tobago. So happy Independence Day 2022 to all my fellow citizens of our lovely Trinidad and Tobago. And again, what mark will you leave?